Oh, right. So, I've been thinking about this since I finished watching this movie about a half hour ago. I think I'm, for two reasons. One, because you should watch this movie. It's on HBO Max. Watch it. It's long, but it's worth it. And two, it's hard for me to explain certain things in this film. Perhaps at some point I'll do a spoiler review. Who knows? I might delve into some spoilers, maybe after the rating. That's what I'll do. I'll do for the first time in a long time. I'll do spoilers. We'll be done after the rating, my rating. Okay. So, The Empty Man came out last year when there was barely any films coming out. The trailer did not flatter this film at all, and nobody saw it. Right? Except for Chris Stuckman, who did a review on it. And I remember watching that review and being kind of interested in seeing this. Would you please go lay down? Go on. Wish I could edit. So I became interested after seeing his review, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Like some people say you could find it on like a red box, but I don't think I have any red boxes near me anymore. Used to. And I don't have a card, so. Then, like a week or so later, Drum Dumps put out a review for it. I didn't watch his, and I didn't watch Stuckman's past the spoiler. I said, I'm going to stay away from reviews. Well, I forgot about the movie. And then, while perusing through Foundflix's archive of Ending Explains, I noticed that he did one for The Empty Man, because I guess I didn't pay attention when he dropped it. So I was like, okay, I really want to see this now. If he did one, I like watching the movies that he does. So there's some movies that I've watched his, and he explains, and it's like, okay, I have to go. Stopped halfway, and I have to see this first. I don't want him to spoil it for me. So yeah. So I was perusing HBO Max tonight because I watched Masked Men earlier. I did the review on that. And I said to myself, let's see what else is on there. And I checked the horror section. I was looking for Stallone movies to do, maybe do a Sly Mania review. Didn't have any I didn't already do. Rockies, Rambos, Demolition Man. So did those. So I searched the horror section. And I found The Empty Man. And I went, I gotta watch this. I was only up there letting the dog out. And I was just checking. But I'm like, I'm watching this right now. Now, this is not a spoiler, but I'm telling you and warning you right now, it's 2 hours and 16 minutes long. Most of that 16 minutes is probably credits, but if you can sit through it, I think it's worth it. The story is about this man whose young teenage acquaintance goes missing. Like, he knows her mother, something like that. I can't go into spoilers with that, but they have prior connections. I know it's not his daughter, so don't think that. She goes missing, and he starts delving in to what happened to her, and he finds that there's a cult. That's not really a spoiler, but there's a cult involved in something called the Empty Man, and yeah, it leads him down a dark path with an ending that's just so confusing. I won't spoil it, but the opening scene is 22 minutes long. This opening scene with these people hiking is 22 minutes long. I'm like, there's no title. I guess there's just no title. And after this scene happens, we get the title drop. I'm like, really? That was just the opening? Okay. So, I can't really go into any real plot details other than what I've told you. So let's just talk about the acting. James Badge Dale plays our main character, also named James. He is fantastic. I think he's an underrated actor. I've seen him in a few things. but he's really good in this. He's this guy who has gone through a personal tragedy. He's trying to find someone that he knows for this girl's mother, trying to find her, and he's desperate, and it works. The director, David Pryor, I think is his name, did a very good job. There are some legitimately creepy moments. Like, at the beginning of this, there's a scene where one of the people, there's a scene in this that's done on the mountain with a person in a hood. It's done very well. I'll talk about it in my spoiler part, but it's done very well. Later in the film, with James himself, there's a scene out in like the middle of nowhere, the woods or something, that's very creepy. Done very well. Certain things that happen during the night, very creepy, very well done. Stephen Root is in this. I like him. He's really just stock cult leader character in this. He's not really, he was better as Jimmy James or whatever his name was on the news radio. He was better there. But yeah, the woman who plays the neighbor lady, the mom of the teenage girl, she's all right. She has a few scenes, but it's not too overly done. We do see that there's some kind of history between him and her, and we do get into that later. That's spoiler territory. But yeah, there's good atmosphere, good freaky horror atmosphere, done very well. Thanks to our director. The score works well. I don't know who did the score, but it works well with this film. Look, honestly, go out and see this. Alright, find it. It's on HBO Max. That's the most likely place you're going to find it. Watch this movie. If you can sit for 2 hours, 15 minutes. I had to keep getting up to let the dog out. And I was able to finish it. It's a good watch. It's a slow burn. But once it gets to where it's going, it's a confusing conclusion, but I don't want to say it's satisfying, but it's a confusing. There's a twist in this that can be confusing. It might make or break this film for some people. They might say, no, that twist is stupid. I don't like this movie anymore. Or they're like, okay, that's very interesting. Way to go, movie, something like that. But I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. It's enjoyable, and I recommend it. Alright, spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. So this film starts out with these people hiking on a mountain when one of them, named Paul, falls through a crevasse. And when he's down there, his friends find him. He's like in a lucid state. He's just like that. And this weird skeleton thing, which is the thumbnail, with him finding that. And this takes place in 1995, by the way. So they take him back to the cabin, and he's still kind of just comatose, really. And that night, he whispers things in one of the other girls' ears. The next morning, they wake up to find Paul gone. There's the scene I'm talking about, I think, comes before that, though. When everybody else is out there, and the one girl's left behind, and she opens the door, and there's a hooded figure standing there. And then she's like, hello? And it just kind of standing there, and it starts to move closer, and it starts running at the door. She shuts it, and then it's pounding on the door, and it's her friends that wanting back in. And then they go to bed, and the next, they do the whole whisper in her ear. Wake up the next morning, Paul is gone. They go outside. He's sitting there at the edge of the bridge, and he starts whispering the weird things again, and the girl stabs Greg, one guy, and flings his body off the bridge, stabs the other girl, floats her off the bridge, and then takes a swan dive off the bridge. And then you see Paul with one tear, and it says the empty man. We then jump 23 years later, following James, who's a former police officer who has connections to this teenage girl. He knows her mother, and they've had some kind of connection. He's gone through some problems with his wife and his son. They died in a car accident, which we find out later. And then, like, a day or so later, she goes missing, and he gets a call from Nora, that's her mom's name, and he starts to investigate along with the other police who recognize him. One of the guys does. So he helps with the investigation, doing his own little thing. And that leads him to I think it's called the Pontifex Institute, where Stephen Root, he's the cult leader. It's this cult, and they say, "Oh, she's been moved somewhere else," And at this point, it's easy to follow this cult. I've seen it before in other shows and movies. Cult has her. She's committed to this cult. They've taken her away, and she's not coming back. Basically, is what it is. But it gets weird. He starts to investigate around the place, and then he ends up at this. There's two cabins, right? And there's these people or whatever dancing around this fire, and he finds the cabin. He gets the information, these folders, and he goes to leave, and they've stopped dancing. This is the other great scene that was done great. They've stopped dancing, right? And so they're looking at him. He backs up, and they move forward one step. He backs up one step, and they move forward. And he's like, "Yeah, no, fuck this, I'm out of here." And he runs, and they all run after him. And he gets into his car, and they jump on the car, and they're pounding on there. But he gets away, and he tries to tell the cops what happened. But they don't care, because he's showing them evidence, and all they care about is whether or not he did it legally. Because if he broke in and took this stuff, then it fucks up the investigation. Too much for police work, right? But, yeah. And then there's this thing with this guy in a bed in a hospital, which ends up being Paul from the 23 years earlier in 1995. It's Paul, and they're feeding off of him, I guess. If they explained what the empty man is, I never heard it. And they're feeding off of him, and they need someone else to take his place because he's weakened after 23 years. Okay. So he talks to this lady. First, she doesn't want to give information, but all of a sudden, she's very forthcoming in what she wants to give for information, and says there's someone in there with him now. He goes in there, and it's Amanda, the girl. And he's like, "I'm calling your mother," but when he calls her... So earlier, there was a scene where she came over with food and stuff, and they almost, kissed and stuff, and we see that there was something between them. And then, earlier in the film, I have to mention that he went to a Mexican restaurant and showed a birthday voucher, and he got a free birthday meal or whatever with the happy birthday thing. But he calls Nora now, and she doesn't recognize his voice. He tries to tell her what's going on. She's like, I don't know you, I'm sorry, and hangs up. And he's confused. And then Nora explains, and this is where you really have to... So earlier in the film, she's explaining. You have to put pieces together throughout the film. Earlier in the film, when they're talking at the beginning of the film, after the 20-minute thing, she explains about how no one's really there. Some kind of weird philosophy. I don't think she was philosophizing. I think she was telling him, you're not here. You're not real. Foundflix said that it was a philosophy thing, and that could be, but once we find this out at the end here, which I'll get to, she's telling him you're not real. That's what it was. It wasn't philosophizing. It could have been, but to me, it sounded like she was telling him you're not real. She's trying to hint to him what's going on. He's not getting it. Sorry, my nose itches. So, and then later, when he's investigating her room, he finds a piece of paper that says Tulpa. Now, if you're a Supernatural fan, you know what a Tulpa is. It's a thought form. You think, if your thoughts are powerful enough, you can make it real. The episode Hell House of Supernatural has a Tulpa in it. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I know what a Tulpa is. He's the Tulpa. It turns out she made him with her mind. He's not a real person, which is why her mother didn't recognize his voice, which just all of a sudden happened. He goes home, he has to break into the house. There's no one living there. There's no furniture, nothing. It's empty, which it would make more sense if there's someone else living there, I guess. But there's just no one living there. Movie ends on a weird note with him going back to the hospital, shooting Paul like 4 times, and then these people bowing to him, and that's how it ends. It's a very weird ending that I still don't know what to make of. Like, here's my question though. If he's not real, what was all the police stuff? He was talking to the police. Are they part of the cult? What's going on there? Also, what happened to Paul after, Paul found the empty man, I'm assuming, and it's not, did he start the cult? There's not enough information given, I don't think. There's just not. It's a very confusing film, but if you're willing to sit through it for 2 hours and 15 minutes, I think you'll enjoy it. That's why I recommend it. So please watch this movie. If you've watched this far, you probably already have watched the movie, and you don't mind spoilers, but yes, it's a very well done film, and I recommend it. Please watch the movie. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.